And so today, we're going to be talking about how to help other landlords, investors, property owners with headache problems. And if you've been following along some of my videos recently, you all have seen some really great examples and going through some numbers, which I'm going to go through quickly here in a minute, just to walk you through what a bad deal look like. But then, more importantly, I'm going to talk about three very specific ways in which you can help investors that are in those situations. All right, so I've got a spreadsheet here that I want to walk you through to show you how a landlord or a homeowner on a rental property can get into a problem situation. And there's many different ways that this can happen. It can be just, self-managed and mismanagement of it, self-mismanagement. It could be that someone else was looking after the property for you and they did a horrible job, and now you're left with this. So here's an example. And so this is a real example. Someone who had a troubled property. So they purchased it for 175 and it was appraised at the time for 175. They got a mortgage of $140,000. They put 20% down and they put, closing costs of about 2,500. So they're into it for 37,500. Okay, makes sense, pretty straightforward. So then what happens is, and let me skip down here. Don't try to figure everything out. Just follow along my cursor. Wherever it's going, follow it. So their hope on this was that they were going to be making, uh, you know, 18% per year. This is over 3 years, but this is 18% each year return. But what this owner found out, this was an owner who was not involved in the property, just had purchased it and gave it to a property management company. Property management company said to them, sorry, here are the keys. We can't help you. You need to deal with this on your own. And so it's like, oh, wow. Okay, let's go see the property. Okay, it's vacant. The windows are boarded up. The heat's not turned on. It's winter going. It's needs a whole bunch of work. Pretty shocking. And this happens to people, and people allow this to happen to their own properties in any number of reasons. So there's no judgment on how they got there. It's just a reality of what it is. So this owner, through some due diligence, found out that you know what the value of the property today is. Because what often happens is owner, a house like this, it's kind of like panic sets in. It's just like, what am I going to do? I don't know what to do. I don't know how to get a tenant. I don't really not sure if I want to deal with tenants. Let's just sell it and be done with it. Right? Kind of that's the knee jerk reaction. Just sell it and be done with it. Well, that's what's called a fire sale. You know, because people will not pay you what you think you need to get of or what you think it's worth. They'll pay for, they'll make an offer based on what they think it's worth. And so, through some due diligence, found out that this property, to sell it today as is, it would sell for around $105,000. Whoa, that is not good, right? So when you sell it, 95% of the time, people in these situations will hire a realtor, which is fine. But, roughly $6,000. So they went from a profit of close to $20,000 to, a negative profit. And I'm not even, it's actually more than this because the property is vacant, right? You put in zero here, look what happens. 92,000. Like, holy smokes, that's a problem. We need to deal with this, right? And so, what I want to do today is show you how you can help other investors who find themselves in this position where they've got a property, maybe they inherited the property and they don't know what to do with it. So I'm going to give you three ways in which you can help them solve their problem and turn this whole deal around. All right, here we go. There are three ways in which I've helped struggling owners with their properties. So the first one there is to take over the property with a check for $100. Okay. You might be asking, that sounds good. What does that mean? $100? Are you serious? Yeah, I'm serious. And so I'll dive into that secondly. Second one is a cash deal. And the third one is what I call done for you lease options, right? So, as you probably know, a lot of my background is doing rent owns and lease options. It's a great strategy to turn a deal around. Recently, did a video that talked about how to turn around your rental property that went sideways. So I'll put a link for that right up here if you want to see that. But let me dive into this in terms of taking over a property for $100. Okay, so there's two ways of looking at this. One, you just want to grow your portfolio of properties and you can't really qualify for mortgages or you don't have a lot of money for a lot of down payments. This strategy is killer for that. Basically, what you can do is you can take over someone else's property or partner with someone, and with a couple contracts that are fantastic and a check for $100, you can now control the property and generate revenue from the property as well as take control of it. It's really an awesome strategy. So that's that one. So if I come across a person who has got a property, let's say maybe, they can be in town or they're out of province or state and they don't know what to do with their property, you can come in and say, look, I'll buy it off of you for X price in in the future at a future date, and I'll lease it from you as well for now, and I'll pay you a monthly lease rent, and you give them a check for $100 with the future option purchase price. So basically, what you're doing is you're saying, I'll 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 gladly pay you on Tuesday if I can have your house today. Basically, what you're doing is you're giving a check for $100 to control a property so that you can improve it, take care of it on behalf of the owner, and then now you can add value to the property, and that added value becomes your benefit, right? So if I am working with an investor from, let's say, British Columbia, who's got a house in southern Manitoba that they don't know what to do with, I can say, well, how about I buy it off of you at X price in 24 months? And they're going, okay, sounds not bad. What does this all look like? Well, uh, but like I'll give you a lease now, and then an offer to purchase for the future, and a check for $100, and then basically what you're doing with me, Mr. Investor from BC, is that you're allowing me to take control of your property so that I can make the most out of it. And I'm willing to commit to you that I'm going to purchase it off of you in the future for this price. It might not be top dollar that you want, but I'm solving your headache. And really, what I'm doing is I'm solving your headache today, right? I'm going to start looking after. I'm going to care for it like it's my own. Okay, so that's how you can do a property for $100. Now, I'm covering content right here in a matter of minutes that takes a long time to really fully understand. But I just want you to grasp the fact that you can take control of a property for $100. Well, the second one is a cash deal. So let's take this same investor who is out of province and they just want to get rid of their property. So this is where you can come in and offer a cash deal, meaning that you'll pay, um, you'll pay now essentially for a deeply discounted deal. So what might that look like? So let's say the house is worth $300,000, or it could be worth $300,000 when it's fixed up, but the owner owes $200,000 on it. And so you say, well, I'll give you $200,000 cash to close on the property by the end of the month. Will it work? I mean, obviously, for you as the operating investor here, you got to know your numbers. You got to make sure that you understand what the future value could be, as well as knowing what your costs are going to be involved in doing that deal. So another video that I recently did was I picked up 8 properties from one investor. I call them tired and frustrated landlords, and basically, this gentleman had he had 8 properties that he was really out to lunch on what was going on with them. 2 of them had fires that he didn't know about. Uh, he didn't have keys for any of these properties, which is funny. But so we came in and I offered him 2 different options, right? I offered him, first of all, like number one, where he holds title and we give him a small deposit and then we'll buy them from him in the future. As well as we came in with a second cash deal. And, this didn't happen overnight, of course. It went back and forth a bit. But he liked the cash deal. And so we were able to purchase the property at, I think it was about 35 cents on the dollar for property. So a word of caution here and a word of, ethics. Um, People can be in very dire straits. You don't want to take advantage of them, right? So with these 8 properties that I got at 35 cents on the dollar, we were taking a big risk because of the location of these properties. And so it was like he kept pushing us to make an offer, and we came in at some prices that he didn't like, and we met in the middle. But ultimately, we were able to solve his problem, and we were able to purchase. By the time we came to agreement, we were able to close, and he got his money 2 weeks later on 8 properties, right? So that's a win-win, right? So that's where you can do a cash deal. Now, cash deals aren't going to work for everybody, because if I went to this if I went to this investor who owed 200 in mortgages, and I said, I'll buy it off of you for 150, and he says yes. Okay, well, that's good, but does he have the other $50,000 cash to clear up the remaining of the mortgage, right? Plus, what other outstanding fees are there with taxes and stuff like that, right? So you've got to make sure that you understand that someone may say yes to a deal, but if they don't understand all that's involved, that deal wouldn't close. So if that person said yes, I'll take 150, just take it off my hands, but they owe 200, like, are they aware that they are going to be responsible to come up with $50,000 cash to close the deal? Some people are, and some people are willing to do that. Some people just want a headache gone. And so that is a way that you can do it. Now, a third way that you can do it to help people with this, because what happens is you talk with a lot of people that are sorting through their deal or their deals, and they're gathering information. And oftentimes people are overwhelmed, right, when they're in this situation, right? This gentleman who had 8 properties, this was about just a little over 12 months ago. And he wasn't really overwhelmed, but he was just so motivated to move on. But oftentimes when you meet with people, by the time that they finally ask you for help, because you've been trying to reach out to them, right? I've helped a whole bunch of families out of foreclosure. But often what happens is by the time they get to that spot, there's so much owing in back payments and lawyer fees and taxes that you just can't even help them anymore. So you want to get to people as early as possible. And so with this next example is that for my BC investor looking at a property in southern Manitoba, he's actually not that opposed to managing the property from afar. And when you do lease options and rent owns, which is my primary strategy, once you've got a great tenant buyer in the property, it really self-manages. Now, there's exceptions to that. I've got a whole bunch of properties that I've got A plus tenants in there. And you might be saying, well, if they're A plus tenants, why aren't they getting a mortgage and just doing it that way? It's like, well, there's reasons why people can't get mortgages. That's a whole different subject. But I've got A plus tenants who take great care of the property. They're adding value to it, never late on a payment. They're fantastic, right? And they send me reports when I ask them about, have you changed the furnace filter? What about the downspouts and the eaves troughs? Are they, have they been cleaned? All that sort of stuff. So for this BC investor, the opportunity there now is that I can do a done for you finding a qualified tenant buyer for them. And it's a flat rate fee. And basically, what I do is do a flat rate fee. So, what I'll do is I will find and qualify A plus tenant buyer. Now, if this is new information to you in terms of tenant buyer, rent to own, lease options, all that sort of stuff, basically what we're doing is we're helping families who can afford mortgage payments but can't yet get a mortgage. Again, like I said before, there's many, many reasons why they can't get a mortgage, but they make good money. I met with a couple last night. Their gross income last year was $90,000. They've got a little bit of debt, but not bad. But their credit is not good. And so, $90,000. Well, here in Winnipeg, you can get close to a $300,000 house potentially at that. If you got good credit score and low debt service and all that sort of stuff. So, when I do a done for you client, we find a quality tenant buyer and then we pre-approve them. Right? So what we're doing is basically we're pre-approving them for what the banks are going to be looking for. And so this includes, verification of everything. I mean, if you're a landlord, the verification process that goes into qualifying a tenant, right? Doing a background search, you pull their credit, you Google and Facebook are best friends when it comes to qualifying tenants, right? Who are they? Where they've been? All that sort of stuff. We verify that. We pull a credit check and we get a professional to run the report and to say, here's what they need to do to repair their credit. So I did one of these for an owner just before Christmas, and we set it up that way. So I did all the qualifying of the tenant, and then I set them up with all the contracts, right? So there's several contracts that go into making a successful rent to own. And basically what I do is I put together a package deal for the owner with the qualified tenant buyer. And I say, here's my findings. I recommend them, right? If I don't recommend them, I'm not likely to give them to the owner, right? Because I want to set everybody up for success. So this client was fantastic. Basically, I pre-gave the owner a binder with a summary and gave him all the background stuff and allowed the owner to make the final decision. He asked me a lot of questions, which were great. And then I met with the owner and the tenant buyer. It doesn't have to be, but the owner wanted to meet with them. And we sign up all the paperwork. I receive the deposit from the tenant buyer, and then I give all that to the owner. And so now the owner is set up for success in terms of they've got the right contracts in place. They know the sequence of what needs to happen, and then they run the deal themselves. So done for you is a great strategy because for those of you who are already in this world of doing lease options and rent to own, you're already doing it. You're meeting lots and lots of people who want to do a rent to own property. And sometimes you don't always have a property ready for them or an investor, but you can build a database of qualified tenant buyers that literally you can, once you find some owner who's got a property, you can farm it out to them, or an owner can come to you and say, hey, find me a great tenant buyer for this property. So done for you is another example of what you can do in the whole realm of doing lease options and rent owns, but more importantly, helping other people, other investors, other landlords who've got a property that either they're having a tough time filling, or they want to employ this strategy because they ultimately want to sell the property and maximize their profits, right? Maximize their profits. They don't need a realtor. They make the tenant buyer responsible for repairs, and they've got a built-in exit strategy, and it's just a really good way of putting together deals like that. So yeah. So just to recap, and there's other ways. I know that, you know that, but for today's session, I just want to talk about, ways that you can help other investors with headache property. With problem properties is you take over the property with several contracts, a lease, an option, a couple other contracts, agreement for sale, or an offer to purchase, and a check for $100. So now you can get into the property, control it with only $100, and then now you can turn around and generate revenue and make the property worth more than what it is. So that's the first one. Second one is just a cash deal. Cash deal is where you come in and, obviously it's not like you're bringing a briefcase of cash with you, because ultimately the deal is done through the lawyer. But if you've got the ability to have cash ready, so you're not having to qualify for mortgages, and there's multiple ways to do that, but which also means that you can close really fast. That can be really attractive to someone who's got a headache property, to be done with it quickly. And I often, when approaching a owner on a problem property, I will often come with them with two proposals. The first one will be the number one, where they still own it, but I take it over with $100 and I start paying them rent. Or the second one is I'll give them a cash deal. And those prices are very different, right? Taking over the property, the $100, I'll pay you in 24 months at this price. Or I can buy it off of you today at this price, right? Which one would you like to do there? And then the third one is done for you lease option, where you set up a tenant buyer and you package it as a deal for the investor to run themselves, right? Because sometimes owners want to run the deal themselves, and that's fine. Lots of times people are looking for turnkey, hands-free deals, and but this way it still leaves them in full control of the deal, because ultimately they get to say yes to who that tenant buyer is, but now all the paperwork is with them and the tenant buyer, so they can have full control of the deal, which adds for many people a level of confidence, because they just know that everything rests on them and they're going to deal with it. So if you like this video, please like it and comment and subscribe to my channel. It helps my YouTube algorithm. And please leave your comments and questions below.